Oh, yeah, and welcome back to Yellow Spandex.
The color-coded podcast. No, not really. Well, I gotta put this somewhere I'm not gonna be like... All right. One of the things that we left off last time that I mentioned that I want to at least touch on, it's not on our list of things to talk about, but Vince and I saw Alita Battle Angel. Have you seen that yet?
I have not.
Are you gonna see it?
Did it just come out?
Yes.
Maybe. Oh, yeah, it did.
The 14th.
I keep forgetting it's been like a long-winded process. Because I guess they filmed in like 2016.
Didn't they change the release dates a couple times?
Yeah.
Because I was like, when is it coming out
At
again?
least once, because during VidCon, which was June, there was a big promotion thing. Some of our friends did brand deals with Alita. It was supposed to come out at Christmas, and then it got pushed. And I don't know if it's true. The rumors I heard was it was like they pushed it because they didn't want to compete with like Aquaman and stuff. And I was like, after seeing Aquaman, we're like, if they pushed it because of Aquaman, I don't have very much faith in this movie. We saw it. It's not perfect, but it was really good. Definitely, to me, better than Aquaman. But it wasn't as big as Aquaman, so I guess I kind of get the.
I had the same anticipation as like when the new Star Wars came out. And I'm not old enough to be able to see the original 3, but when they did the pre's, they remastered the originals for theater, and they changed some things like Solo jumping over, or not jumping, but stepping over Jabba's tail, and like
He wasn't in the first movie in that part. That's actually a completely added scene.
shit like that.
Well, well, Lucas couldn't leave his crap alone.
But I had the same anticipation, for Alita as I did when the Star Wars were remastered, and I wasn't let down at all. Like, at first I thought the movie just had like way too much romance and heart, but then I realized like it wasn't a lot. It was just a lot to think about.
So to me, the romance, the thing that was the problem for me was I don't know his name, but the kid who plays Hugo in it, he was the weakest point in the movie to me because they had so many great actors in it. So like Jennifer Connelly is one of the like scientist doctors and kind of the villain through the movie, and then it's not credited, but Edward Norton's in the movie, and if you go see it, you'll see in what facet. But it was interesting seeing Edward Norton and Jennifer Connelly together again in a superhero movie. And
they
then
were not in a movie together, superhero movie.
were they not in Hulk together?
No, because Eric Bana and Jennifer
that's
Connelly.
right. Okay,
And
I got my
it was Liv
universe
Tyler.
mixed up. I got my
Which
universe mixed up.
I would have
That's
been happy
interesting.
with that. And like Liv Tyler did an alright job,
Mm-hmm.
but like Jennifer Connelly was like dead on for that.
Mm-hmm.
That was great.
She was really good in this movie, and then Christoph Waltz was phenomenal. And
As
then
usual.
I can't remember her name.
Rosa Salazar.
Yeah, she was Alita.
Alita.
She was motion captured, but she was motion captured in the scenes. So they put the bodysuit on her, the mocap dots on her face, and the camera on the arm, and she walked around the scenes with them, and then they threw the CG character in.
Yeah.
And whatever care they took of it, I loved the character Alita so much. Like, from the point, you'll kind of see why it happens, but like, there's points where she's a teenager and points when she's not. And like, when she's a teenager, like her tasting an orange for the first time, like it could be really corny, but I felt joy with her. It's like I got the emotions of what it might be like to have tasted like an orange for the first time, be that happy about it.
Yeah.
And then even just like she's badass and also very innocent. So it's kind of like, I don't know. You have like Rainbow Bright discover she's Jason Bourne. It's like how it
With like the hugest amount of courage and like aspirations to be like the best human person she could be without, because she's a cyborg.
Yeah.
Like,
Actually, it's very much like a cyberpunk Pinocchio. To me, but
I could get that.
it's based off a manga from 1990. From what I hear, James Cameron wanted to make this movie since Avatar, but had been putting it off because of Avatar and the other various reasons and stuff. But I'm kind of glad they waited till like now till the technology caught up. But yeah, the kid that played Hugo was a little bit too much of a pretty boy to believe that he survived this dystopian future. And also, like, his acting, I hesitate to say people act bad because I can't act, but it didn't fit to me in this cast of like phenomenal actors and stuff. And the fact that Alita, the character herself, is not like she's a like animated character, had so much more heart and believability than a human counterpart. And Vince pointed out at one point, she's like, "Does it bother you that I'm not completely human?" And he's like, "You're the most human thing I know." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." 'Cause the way you delivered that line was awful.
yeah.
I think
We
I
can
saw
tell.
that in the preview.
Yeah.
But action scenes were insane because in the world of Alita, there's a fighting style called Panzerkunst.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the manga actually addressed what it was, but I sounded like, cause we got to see an early screening where they had a Q&A with the cast, and they'd mentioned like that they had kind of created it with the choreographers. And it's supposed to, like, the mythology of Panzerkunst, it's a fighting style that only cyborgs can do, but it's also fine-tuned to cyborg like abilities.
And yeah, like the way their bodies are made and everything.
But it was weird because you know how some like CG fights and martial arts, the way they move doesn't feel right. Like you don't feel the physics of it. I felt the physics, but it definitely have that like elevated, like heightened reality feel to it. And there were so many devastating moments since they were cyborgs, there wasn't very much blood. I know there were a couple of moments with a lot of blood, but like a lot of it was just these like futuristic. I couldn't tell if it was like oil, blood, vital fluid things, but they were devastating when you saw it, even though there wasn't actual blood there. So I went through like a range of emotions. Like it's the first movie that I feel like I've seen where I felt like they try to fit a lot in, but it also left me with so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
which can be good.
Yeah, and so now I went and like looked up Alita stuff afterwards. Turns out there's a whole universe. Like it's insane. I was like, well, maybe I can like watch some core stuff or read some core stuff and figure this out. It's almost as bad as Doctor Who. Like I would have to dedicate catching up to it. It would not be a leisurely thing because there's 5 years of manga, and I think there's like 8 or 9 volumes or something of like full books. And then when the manga ended, at some point later within the 90s, 3 more books released, or 3 more series or something released, and then a set of anime cartoons that are separate from those. And that whole universe that kind of sets up this movie. Like the movie is also kind of an origin. I was telling Vince, like from what I understand without seeing everything, and if anybody out here reads Alita, maybe you can correct me, but it felt like to me based on what I read about the other stuff and then seeing the movie, that the movie was kind of like the center axis of all these different like versions of the world, you know? So they're not like...
It's like an amalgamation of all periods.
Like they're not the movie's not a continuation or attached directly to any of the previously existing things, but it's kind of like Spider-Verse. Like, you know, the Spider-Verse, like Into the Spider-Verse kind of had this axis of all the world. Like it kind of felt like the intersection of all these things. Because like Christoph Waltz's character, Dyson Ito, in the movie, but I think in the manga it's a Japanese name. It's like it started with a D, but it was like a longer Japanese name.
Doesn't sound like a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's like Daishi Ito.
Something like that. But really great. And I actually so it's funny, I posted this when we saw our first early screening. Hey, they gave us like a mini Funko Pop thing, which is really cute, and I hadn't seen it before. It's so small. Actually, you can see here. It's a
keychain.
It's like a keychain. It's so
I
small.
can see.
Yeah. If you like anime or you liked Avatar, because it's not like Avatar in the sense of like it's nothing like the story. You can tell the same team made this.
Yeah.
And I kind of dug that because the Avatar is the same way. Like I can't say it's the best movie I've ever seen, but it was an experience. So Alita was an experience. So I posted that, took a picture of the Funko in front of like the screen of the early screening thing, and then like the Alita Battle Angel account like retweeted it unexpectedly.
Nice.
And suddenly like I have a lot more followers who probably expect a lot of Alita stuff from me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's literally the first and last post you'll probably see about Alita. Because I love it, but I don't know anything about it. Like,
well, you could send them over to the podcast.
I need to do some instas with more Alita stuff. I noticed my Insta, like the more because I watch a shit ton of anime, and normally I post a lot of Marvel on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And people like that.
I do.
And yeah, and
like
and people follow me for that. And it's mostly I do that when I'm doing Marvel things or watching Marvel things. And lately it's been like no Marvel, so I'm watching a lot of anime. I'm posting anime things. And then I posted the toy that we got from the Alita movie and everything. And I lost like 15 people.
Because of it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
So I was like, okay, maybe I'll have to post some more Marvel for you guys.
It's funny. Follow my personal Instagram if you want to see like the outward expression of my emotional roller coaster. Because I feel like for the most part, like I'm like, okay, keep it together, Rod, you know, and then have like little private breakdowns or whatever I need. But then I think the Instagram is like a reflection of like whatever is going on that day. The RKVC Instagram is very professionally like curated through friends and stuff, but our personal accounts are just kind of whatever we decided them to be. And for me, it's like I'm kind of like a soccer mom with like a scrapbook. I'm just like I'll post something like inspirational that day, not because I think anybody else needs to hear it, it's because like I need to see this, or like I ran today, or like my niece did something cute, or here's a sandwich I thought was good. I don't know. It's like the opposite of what every social media person tells us to do. Anyway, all that to say that Alita was great in my eyes, but not perfect, but really good. And I'm Vince, you can tell, because Vince is actually the anime expert. For me, as an outside person, not liking anime, I really liked it. And so I feel like if you liked anime, you liked Avatar, or you're into like steampunk kind of stuff, you're really gonna love it. And it's a whole world. Now, I did say we saw it twice. The first time I was kind of tired, so I actually dozed off in the middle of something, but it wasn't because it was boring. I fall asleep during a Disciple concert. So yeah, I know if you don't know what that is, go look it up. Josh, we had like a youth group upbringing, so it's a Christian metal band, but like I fell asleep, so I felt like I missed stuff. I was like, I had so many questions, so we saw it again because I just want to see it again anyway.
I did too, yeah.
And it was like, oh no, I didn't miss what I thought I missed. There's just a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it wasn't frustrating stuff, you know, like it wasn't like that can't happen in outer space, because literally the world they set up, anything can happen. Like there's very few things that you could be like, that doesn't work here, because you don't know how it works. It's so complicated.
That was one of the coolest experiences. It was kind of reverse experience for me, and probably you too, Rod. We did the hashtag Alita experience.
Oh, the Passport to Iron City.
Passport to Iron City. Where
thanks to Tiny Sponsor.
Yeah, thanks to Tiny Sponsor. Mike P, if you're listening. It was like this roller coaster of a thing. You walk in, and it's kind of like an escape room / like puzzle thing, immersive theater thing.
I kind of described it as like it was a cross section of like an escape room with training wheels and like a real life RPG, because you would walk up to a vendor and they'd be like, "Welcome, pick from items A through D for 50 shekels." Like,
yeah,
50 shekels.
Credits.
Yeah. And then if you were having too many problems, they're like, "You should pick up the wrench, just to see." I'm like, okay,
like, you should look left, look by the television. Now look over here. Yeah, but just long story short, whatever. They kept. We were like, "Oh, let me check my cell phone," and they're like, "Oh, I don't know what that is." Like, and we're like, "Oh, okay." Because at this point, we don't know anything about Alita. We don't know like how the world is set up or what the rules are or anything. So going into the movie and finding out that it's like 2537, the year 2537. It's like 300 years before the fall, which is after the fall. So it's like all these things they throw in the movie to like paint this environment, this world that they're in. And I think that was probably the most enjoyable part for me, was to see society kind of fall, unfortunately, and how it was picked back up, and then like what things stuck, what things didn't stick. Like,
it would be a good movie for you to take your two older kids to see and then let mom and the baby hang out for a day, because I don't think Angie would necessarily love it.
No, doubtful.
But
you never know, though. I don't know. She's like some crazy stuff like out of left field. Be like, what? You'll like this?
Mainly because there's a lot to take in. Like, there's a world to take in, and I know that's not the most entertaining thing for people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action too, but I think one of the reasons it's good for that is it's kind of like Captain America and Wonder Woman, in the sense that Alita is so pure that, I mean, she murders all that stuff, but like not because she's like a hitman or anything. It's just because like
self protection, or family.
Well, she's a fighter. Yeah, she's fighting for the right thing, but like her constant thing is that she can't stand idly by while evil perseveres. Mm-hmm. So like anytime there's a presence of evil, which in this world there's a lot of, she like figuratively and literally raises her sword. And it had the same I don't know why this does this to me. Maybe it's because I'm older now, but like in Wonder Woman, when she stood up in No Man's Land, and in Alita, when someone was like gonna just kill her and he had every like ability to, she was like, I will not stand by in the presence of evil. And I was like, I got choked up, because like we don't see people like that very often in real life or movies, like, and it seems sincere and not corny. And I love that was a message that that string didn't waver through the movie. Like, she doubted other things and stuff, but she never doubted the sense of good and risking whatever it took to do good.
You root for her the entire movie. There's not one point where you're like, F Alita.
Yeah.
Like, or that was a bad decision or whatever.
And
like,
all the people around her.
Oh,
it's questionable.
It's almost like she's the straight character and everyone else is just crazy.
Yeah.
But
so in the world of like, normal people, she's the cyborg. She's normal.
Yeah, I mean, she forgot. She wakes up.
In this world, there's a lot of cyber. It's a normal thing. Actually, humans are kind of rare.
Yeah.
Like, they call humans like meatbags, I think, in this series.
Sounds like a dark side thing.
Oh yeah.
Kind of. It's kind of in. Have you seen Altered Carbon?
No, but I know of it. Yeah.
So it's kind of like in that sense where it's like your being is kind of transferable. It's kind of in a future far enough where we figured out like how people can be like phones. You know, like Vince and I just upgraded our iPhones, and it took all of like half an hour to transfer the essence of one phone to another, to where the old phone was like literally a shell that we traded in for AirPods. You know, and it's kind of, that's how humans are. So in Altered Carbon, it's completely like that. It's literally like a disc. In this, it's you still have to keep your core. They keep talking about your core, which I don't know if they meant it to be, but it was kind of was like a double like literal thing, your core, but also kind of like a figurative, like your heart. I think, I don't know, maybe I got it wrong, but she kept talking about things that are part of her core that couldn't change, and I think it sounded like a double, you know,
Yeah, like
thing
double
about that.
meaning.
But so yeah, so that world, it's like there's, and they didn't touch on it a whole lot because once again they threw a lot of stuff in the movie, but the few people, like I think Christoph Waltz's character is completely human, Hugo's completely human. They refer to him as meatbags, and you get a sense that they're kind of looked down on because obviously if you have like a cyborg arm, you're going to be much stronger than people. But like it's a world where it's common to like, oh, okay, your leg's not working, let's just cut it off and replace it with something.
With a cyborg, something. There's a lot of things I want to spoil so badly about the plot, but I need you guys to go watch it first.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, did you say it was Cameron that did this?
James Cameron.
So he did this movie.
He produced it. Robert Rodriguez directed.
Okay, so he didn't direct it. You know, he's been saying some stupid crap lately.
Oh, really?
James Cameron.
I think he's just getting old, man.
Yeah. I mean, like he was talking crap about Aquaman. I think he talked crap about Wonder Woman.
He's already like a
Endgame.
very eccentric person anyway. You know?
Yeah, but it's just like at some point you're like, why are you just trying to get attention? You're like, just like the grandpa on The Simpsons, like that thing's evil. You said that about everything. Oh, I'm just want attention.
What did you say about Aquaman and Wonder Woman?
I don't know.
They just didn't like it, or
Something weird to where it was
Yeah,
like,
look
wait a
this
minute,
up.
you made, let's look it up because it was hilarious. It was basically like, it's terrible that this is in a weird different world. And it's like, you made Avatar. Like what the?
I'll tell you one thing though, like kind of off of what we were just saying, but or off the subject of what we were just talking about. But Michelle Rodriguez is also in this.
she is?
Yeah, she is Gelda, which is one of the like hunters.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
she's also CG.
And like that was some of the scariest crap. Like cyborg coming after you, for one, is scary enough. We saw that in Terminator, or like a version of some sort of AI, you know what I mean? But
Okay, this is what he says.
yeah.
I could never have made that film because it requires this total dreamlike disconnect from any sense of physics or reality. It exists somewhere between a Greek mythic landscape and a fairy tale landscape. And people just kind of zoom around underwater because they propel themselves mentally, I guess. I don't know, but it's cool. You buy it on its own terms, but I've spent thousands of hours underwater. I'm very literal about my underwater. He's basically upset that it was unrealistic. I was like, dude, you made a movie about like aliens on a different planet.
So I'm gonna preface this by saying like I agree with that. Like it's kind of ridiculous for like one sci-fi person to criticize another sci-fi person. But if I want to try to like find a little bit of what he was probably getting at, was I will say in Avatar and definitely Alita, there is like a tether to reality, and not like in a dark like Zack Snyder sort of way. Like Alita once again is such like a pure person. Like I feel like like this world that Alita is in, I feel like could exist in 300 years.
Yeah.
And it's a little scary in the sense. So that was part of like the emotional journey. I was like, oh, how are we going to deal with this when we get there? Will I be alive when this happens? Like, and even actually maybe like more like 600 years, because the events of this movie happened 300 years after an already advanced society.
that's what messed me up is trying to make sense of that. Like, okay, 2537, what's 300 years? And then like, where is that? How old would I be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I'm in the shower like counting decades like an idiot. I'm like, 2019, I'm 34, so
You can get out a calculator.
I don't know what he said about Endgame and the other movie and Wonder Woman and stuff, but as far as what he said about Aquaman, just there in the quote, the section of the quote we just read, I agree with him in the sense that Aquaman doesn't actually have heart. I think Aquaman has shortcuts to heartful storylines.
Mm-hmm.
Like Aquaman is like, he's a son of a father and a mother from different worlds. So we know as an audience seeing movies that's supposed to be, there's a lot of shorthand there. There's like, that's supposed to be like emotional. That's supposed to be, rooted and stuff. Alita kind of is, figuratively, because the cyborgs are like from a bunch of different parts.
Mm-hmm.
Alita's family is very much like cobbled together from whoever's left. And so like their relationships are a little less like shortcutted. So you grow with their relationship as you see them. You fall in love with Alita the same timeline that Christoph Waltz falls in love with her, in the same sense, like not romantically, like as a daughter kind of. Avatar had things that was cliched. It was like, like acid Pocahontas, but
yeah,
like,
exactly.
but then there were things like they didn't shortcut the terms of like family necessarily. I mean, there was a brother situation happening, but like there was a brother situation, right? Wasn't it like a brother died? Or am I getting that mixed up with Pacific Rim? I don't know. Or is it the same movie?
I don't know. I mean, the brother did die in Pacific Rim.
Well, anyway, like in Avatar, there was like another tether, like a literal tether to reality. Playing a little bit devil's advocate, because I do agree with you that it's ridiculous for him to like criticize like another superhero movie.
Yeah. Well, he was blasting also Avengers. He said he wished people would get over Marvel movies because it's enough to see, people destroy cities and this or that. And it was just like, you had Terminator, you do all these other sci-fi movies. I don't understand like a little bit understand what you're saying, but like what does it sound like? He's just being a whiner.
Yeah, I
I don't have any good movies right now. I was supposed to do 6 Avatar sequels and haven't even started the second one yet,
it is crazy. He's Clint Eastwood in that one movie with he hates Chinese people.
Yeah, Gran Torino.
Yeah, that was a good movie though.
I love that. I love that movie.
I like the MCU, but maybe it could be better.
Yeah.
The superhero movie thing that doesn't rely on story and heart, like I get that the criticism of that. If there was like a little positive takeaway I would like to take away from that, though, is I would love to see like Aquaman have like a little more developed heart instead of like shortcuts. That is one thing that he excels in these weird sci-fi movies. It's like, okay, I feel for these people in different ways. Like, well, actually in Avatar, seeing them have sex with their hair thing, like that is a complete disconnect from reality. It's like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to like relate with that kind of, but you still kind of saw this like connection, and I don't know. It's a weird defense.
Literally.
Yeah, it's a weird defense, but I would like to see that little element in more of non James Cameron films. They're that big a scale. If there was a little bit of a good takeaway from that, I don't know where that's going. If you go see it, there's a great song that plays in the end credits, but if you got to go to the bathroom, there's nothing after the credits.
Oh,
They
yeah.
give you that little thing. The first screening we saw was one of those kind of like press type screening things, and you just never know if that's an accurate version.
Yeah.
So because the one we saw, they played the whole movie, credits rolled. The credits are actually relatively short for a movie of this size.
With all the CG in it?
Yeah, like
Gosh.
all that CG and stuff, it was pretty short. So either they just didn't credit some people, or that was a really hard-working team. And then they played behind the scenes where they showed like all the mocap and stuff, and then they played a Q&A with the director and the cast and stuff.
I forgot about that.
So that's why the second time we went, we're like, well, maybe they'll play something else. Because I know you had mentioned when the first Avengers movie came out, the premiere didn't have the shawarma scene in it.
It's pretty much like what, like a long featurette and like things you would see on the DVD and stuff.
The first thing was equivalent of a YouTube video that probably is on YouTube, where they well now at least that they show her without the CG and stuff, and then the second thing was probably like maybe half hour ish or longer of a Q&A with Twitter and the
director and
the producers.
Producer. It's funny because like you could tell like who spent the money, and who like was the director and who was like James Cameron.
It was funny though because Vince pointed out they just kept cutting Jennifer Connelly off.
That was so disappointing. Like Because first they're like your career is amazing, like we're everyone in the room like loves your career, and she's like, oh, thank you, and then she starts talking and like they cut her off completely, like
Move on to another.
yeah.
Well, it wasn't that one kind of, but I would ask questions. They would be like, so how was the role? I can't remember her name, but it was some ridiculous sci-fi name.
Sheeran.
Yeah, how was she? I guess it wasn't as ridiculous as that. But
It's spelled weird though, like Chiren.
yeah. So like how did Sheeran connect to you and then the real world in the movie? And she's like, oh, it's actually funny you asked that because I spent a lot of time. She would say one thing like, because I am also a mother, and they're like, oh, that's great. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that was like 1/10 of the answer.
And
Wow.
she takes it like a champ.
Which was because she's. Rosa, I looked up her credits afterwards. I definitely recognize her from stuff, but this is probably definitely like her breakout.
I would say.
Like,
I don't know that chick from
the thing, but Jennifer Connelly is like a history.
Yeah.
Being like, hey, that's not Demi Moore.
No. She's just as gorgeous.
And so like maybe she's just like, I've had my career and I'm having my career, so it's fine.
I love her in this movie so much.
She's really good.
I mean, everything she does always has this like, I don't know, sheen or like this like silkness to it.
I'll agree to
like,
that.
Yeah, she does very well in front of a camera. I'll say that much.
Oh, one thing that I would have liked to know that hopefully is not a spoiler for you guys going in is that they definitely plan on this being a more than one movie thing.
That's what makes me like,
because it doesn't
giddy.
I don't know if you felt like this, but it didn't feel like it ended to me. It felt like,
Nope.
Okay, and we're gonna go to intermission.
It literally felt like one small chapter to a very long book.
Yeah, a very small 2-hour and 5-minute chapter.
Yeah, it wasn't short, but shit, man, I was enthralled.
How people taking it?
So
Rotten
Rotten
Tomatoes,
Tomatoes didn't really do good for the critics.
Really?
The audience loved it though.
That's how it.
The critics gave it like a 53%,
So weird
and then
sometimes.
the audience gave it like an 80-something percent, 87% or something like that.
I saw that some of the criticisms was that it was like a little pretentious and assuming that there was going to be a sequel because it does not resolve.
No,
Like, I don't know what to compare that to.
it's not, and it's not like a cliffhanger per se, but it definitely isn't
Left some
resolved.
things open.
It is. It literally feels like they got to like they're like working to the climax, and then they're just like, "See you next time." I was like, okay, and it wasn't disappointing. It's just, yeah, it felt like a TV series, and we're gonna get to see the next episode soon. You know?
Or it felt like I just beat like the first 6 levels of a game.
It's like, wait, the princess is in another castle.
And Zalem is a floating city in this movie, and it's one of, I guess, 12 floating cities that were all, each nation of the world had their own floating city, and there's enemies, in the universe. I'm not going to say who, but because that gives away stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
For those of you listening, throw down in the comments what your favorite scene was or what your favorite part of Alita was.
And if you haven't seen it yet, hopefully it's still in theaters because from that tweet that Alita reposted, some stranger had posted like, "Oh, definitely going to see this on rental," and I was like, "This is definitely a theater movie."
Both times we saw it in 3D,
Yeah.
and it was awesome.
Now the 3D wasn't overbearing. Actually, I at times almost felt like it was unnecessary, but it was kind of like Avatar, where it felt like an environment instead of an effect. So
That's cool.
There's probably stuff that I didn't even realize was 3D. Oh, like when she would touch a mirror, you could see the dust like you would in real life, like settling on the mirror. Like it's like not flat.
Yeah.
You could kind of see it like separate from the layers of the mirror and stuff.
The sound design too was amazing. All
Like,
the
I remember
Foley
seeing
and everything.
Winter Soldier in 3D, and they were doing that a lot of time. They were just putting everything in 3D for a while,
Yeah.
And going to, I think they probably still do, but like going into that, and then I saw it like twice, one in 3D, one without 3D. In the 3D, like there's only a couple of scenes that like even I could tell the difference or even care. Like, like in this one glass elevator, like where Cap's in the one time, like that looked a little bit different. And like, oh, that's kind of cool. It almost looks like realistic, like you're actually hanging outside the building. But like, besides that, like it's unneeded. It's just a way for people to jack up the price. But imagine in this kind of a movie, like since it's kind of a largely CG, I'm sure, like in the universe.
It's not as hugely scaled as you may think.
Yeah.
Because it all happens in like one area.
One city.
Yeah.
But
it's like at least a lot of
the scenes are enormous. Like And they're long.
Ooh, there's a
The
thing.
fight scenes are crazy.
The fight scenes. There's also a thing in it called Motorball, which is kind of like their hybrid, like death race / soccer / NASCAR.
American Gladiator. Remember
Kind
what
of.
was that? American
Actually, 'cause they have
Gladiator.
a thing. Yeah, they go after. Yeah.
With the ball, and you have to like run and like dunk the ball in the thing
Yeah.
before they tackle you.
There's so Motorball is one of those things in this universe where like murder is kind of like fine. I guess since it's a sport, it's like a gladiator sport.
Well,
kinda,
they're
you
not
know?
human, right?
Yeah. So the idea is that like you can cut someone's arm off, but they'll just get it replaced. Or even if you cut their head off, if it's not all the way up to their neck, that core can like go to something else. So, but at the same time, because of how violent it is, if you do just kill someone, oops, you know, like it's just kind of like accepted in that arena. So she knows.
The announcer's so funny.
She knows that like there's a good chance she's gonna get killed, and she sees people like wanting to kill her and stuff, and she's still like, she smiles, she's like, be easy on me, guys, and it's like, really? You're not? It's like she's trying out for cheerleading, you know. But I don't know.
She's a serious badass, though.
Yeah.
In this movie, like, you will be on the edge of your seat, like, yes, Alita, please more. Spank me. No, it's
So
fine.
you liked it.
Yeah.
I freaking liked it a lot.
Good.
Real quick, you mentioned something about like Winter Soldier being 3D and not that impressive and stuff. So we saw Endgame, like I don't know how many, not Endgame, Infinity War, I don't know how many times, and I it's one of the first Blu-ray I've bought in like 6 years, because I wanted to, even though we don't have a Blu-ray player, I just want to physically own it. A few of the times we saw it in 3D. Something that I just cannot get out of my head is, I don't know if you noticed, did you see it in 3D?
I don't think so. I don't like seeing them in 3D.
So this one was great in 3D because of how much stuff was happening. But when they go to, for some reason, if you haven't seen Infinity War, skip ahead 30 seconds or something. But when they go to the Soul Stone World,
Realm, yeah.
or that whatever planet that is, and there's those two pillars, they're in 3D. But you know how the bottom they taper off into like a pyramid?
Yeah.
The straight parts are 3D, and then whoever comped it didn't comp the bottom triangle parts. They sit further back, even though it's supposed to be one piece.
Huh.
And we saw it twice, and I was like, at least twice, and I was like, oh, that wasn't just a glitch that one time. They're just poorly comped for something that massive of scale. And our friend Sparky works at the company that does the like kind of proofreading for the visuals on these releases, and I was like, motherfucker. Messed up.
You had one job.
Yeah, actually, he had 3,000 jobs on that, but because he's like part of his job is he has to. He specifically did the Infinity War quality check too. He has to like quality check in like all the languages, like watch for drop frames and stuff like that. I'm like,
That has to be a hard job. I worked for a company once that basically it was doing like Guitar Hero kind of stuff, to where like I'd get stems of songs. It'd be like one famous song, but I'd get the drums and the guitars separately from the bass and the vocals. And so I had to go through and make sure like that everything was separated correctly. So the drums were just the drums, the bass were just the, and oh my gosh, I about just like my eyes roll back in the back of my head like, oh, and I'm just listening like for like 4 minutes for like the rest of the day, like the rest, all these songs, like it's not even you're listening to the song. So like I imagine just like staring like at the screen, like I can't make a mistake. I've got to catch whatever small error there might be. Like that, I don't know. There has to be some superhero that can do that. I have no idea.
Being able to like take your focus off of the movie and like just pay attention to these details.
I mean, like
has to take
hyper-focused.
some practice.
Probably could only do it in short term. There are short things too, like 5-minute chunks.
so we were actually offered jobs at this place.
Oh, yeah?
Right, and I was like, you know what? Not that we couldn't use the money, but the time is crazy, because even though like we're not the most well-off musicians, like it completely fills our schedule, like music and YouTube. Second, if you ever wanted to see like a Korean Joker, that would be my origin story. It's just like after a week of that, I walk out of the building. It's like, why so sad? Like why so serious?
Why so serious?
Guys,
That's why Rod murders people.
yeah. I was like, I know what this world needs, and it's not that from me. So, also, I don't know. I feel like things like that. Like, I'm such a huge fan of movies, but I don't really want anything to do with making them.
Yeah.
Because I like the experience of enjoying them. Music's even like that really touchy realm where like I love making it, and I love a lot of things about making it, but sometimes it ruins the experience for me.
It really does.
And I try to like be careful where I step in that.
One of my music history teachers was like that. She was also like, she's just an insane, pianist or violinist or whatever it was. And she's like, it's annoying because you'll go see some famous, Beethoven thing or whatever it was at the time. And she's like, you'll hear all the things that are wrong. And everybody else is just enjoying it. And like, you see all the little tiny errors. I mean, like that's already with like, whenever I hear a song, like I'm like, oh, there's that one tiny part. Oh, there's that. And like, and it's because we come to expect things. It's perfect.
It's funny because off of what you guys are saying, and to touch on what you were, Josh, you were saying about 3D, is it really gave that like vivid, immersive feeling in Alita, and I felt the same way in Avatar. I felt the same way in Transformers. It kind of just pulls you in more. It's subtle, but my point is we've gotten like used to this. Like I go to see a 3D movie and I don't appreciate it like I did when I first saw 3D for the first time.
Yeah.
We're kind of like desensitized in a sense.
That's an interesting topic. Do you remember the first 3D movie you saw, or 3D anything you saw?
No.
I actually remember, since you brought that up, my godmother. When does the story start? Okay, so when I was a kid, probably like younger than 10 years old, TBS or one of the networks that played older movies, it was a huge event. I don't know if you remember this. They were going to do a John Wayne movie in 3D.
Holy crap!
But it wasn't obviously like a in the time of when John Wayne was coming out. It was just like this was like a resurgence. And the thing was, you had to go to CVS or McDonald's or something.
Get the glasses.
Yeah, so with the purchase, you could get the glasses either for free or like $1 or something. And so it was a whole event. Like we all went to my godmother's house, and everybody made sure that like, are there enough glasses for everybody? And it had the red and the blue.
Yep.
Which is like the most awful 3D ever. But
and I remember sitting down, and it was like, holy shit. The horse is running at me. It wasn't. It was, but it was like it looked like a cutout, like a paper cutout, like placed on top. But it was like, oh my god,
this is amazing.
And then fast forward to now, I'm like, that bottom of that triangle's off.
Yeah, we're like desensitized. One of the things I do remember is getting like a box of Trix or something like that. Trix are for kids, and it coming with like the 3D glasses to look at the back of the box to like learn the clues or whatever. That's like the furthest I can think back to 3D anything for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever watched it when I was younger. When I was in college, I worked shortly at a theater, and it was about the time that Spy Kids 3 came out. And they had 3D for that. Spy Kids 3D, and it was the most annoying crap ever. Awful movie, but you go watch it, and it's literally like, put your glasses on.
Yeah.
Take your glasses off.
Oh, that's right. Because you couldn't wear them the whole time because you have like seizures or something.
No, it's just
Right?
it looks funky.
Well, because I remember actually, now that you think about it, the John Wayne thing, I think that there were like symbols that popped up on the bottom of the screen when you were supposed to put them on, because it wasn't
Probably.
healthy for you to wear that thing for like 2 hours.
Probably not all the scenes were probably done that way.
Oh, yeah,
too,
yeah,
which is just like in the Spy Kids movie. In fact, if you watch it on TV or on Netflix now, it's not 3D. It's just Spy Kids 3, but it was 3D in the theaters.
Shoot, wasn't that a Robert Rodriguez movie as well?
I don't know.
Spy Kids? I think it was. The only things I know about Spy Kids are they exist. Robert Rodriguez probably directed it, and that Meghan Trainor married the guy from it.
I was gonna say there was somebody famous that married Junie, like Meghan Trainor. That's hilarious.
Who I'm so jealous of, because I've grown to have a crush on Megan since we moved to LA. Like, it's weird because I'm not like stalking her or anything, but she was very active on like Instagram stories and Snapchat for a while, and she might still be. And I watched it before, but now I'm recognizing the places because we're here. So I'm like, oh, she was at the Grove. Like, we were literally there earlier the day getting something, and she's going to see a movie with her friends, and she just seems fun. And she's super talented.
I can't tell you how many celebrities I've seen on Instagram where it's like, oh my god, they're at the Grove right now. We were just fucking there.
And
Excuse me.
I do not like a lot of her music, not because I don't think it's good. It's just not for me. But she seems so fun. I was like, oh, she'd be like a blast, to date or hang out with or be friends with or whatever. So when she got engaged to that guy, I was like, lucky dude, you know? And I don't know if you saw, but she put an EP out of songs that like correlated with her wedding.
No.
And I made me more jealous because there's a song on there. If you are a fan of like Meghan Trainor or like pop music, if you're not a fan of pop music, don't listen to this. But there's a song on there called "I'm Down," and I'm so jealous that a guy was written that song by the woman that loves him, because I was like, if anybody that I was in a relationship with came to me with that song, like a woman came to me with that song, and like, if we're not already married, it's happening now. Because how it communicated so eloquently and genuinely like how in love she was, and I have not felt like that. Like, I felt it not being in that relationship. I'm probably overselling, and now you're gonna listen to me. You're like, it's fine, whatever, you know. But
yeah, I was gonna say, if she's listening, she'd probably be like, "Oh, that's like the best thing I've ever heard."
It's so sweet, Rod. Thank you so much.
It just hit me though, because she's also like she's a good songwriter. So it's like some of the melodically it's epic, but like lyrically, I love these. Like the hook lyric is, "If you're up for it, I'm down." Mm-hmm. You know, it's like it's so simple but so clever. And then the whole thing is like, she talks about like. Whenever I see you, it's instant amnesia. You know, like, I don't remember anyone before you. And that hit me. I told Vince, a friend of mine, Jeb, when he was getting married, and I don't know, Josh is married, so maybe he'll also echo this, but I was like, me and Jeb were younger, and I was like, so not that I love Dawn, but like, why her and not any other relationship you've had? Like, when did it come to like, she's the one, you know? And he was like, one day I realized that I can't remember any other relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how my day-to-day was before she came into my life. And I was like, I don't know what that feels like. But that's insane. So, like, when she put that in the song, I was like, wow, like, lucky guy. Anyway, that was a long tangent from Spy Kids. But
Did you watch any of the Spy Kids or no?
No, those are the three things I knew about that series.
I saw the wasn't there one where like there's the high school?
You're thinking of Sky High.
That's what I'm thinking.
I do love Sky High though.
That's not Spy Kids, but it does have like the same goofy.
Like Kurt Russell's like the dad, and
you know,
it does look a lot the same.
The kid from the main character from Sky High looks a lot like Hugo from Alita. So maybe I was just talking shit on somebody I liked in another movie.
Danielle Panabaker's in that movie.
Let me take a look at this while you guys talk
That's
about
funny.
She's she was Killer Frost in.
Oh, that
Flash.
girl, yeah. Oh, didn't you work on that album too, the Lemonade Mouth or whatever?
She wasn't in that.
She wasn't?
No.
Man, I'm just getting all these Disney girls mixed up.
I remember that lemonade mouth thing.
Lemonade Mouth.
Yeah,
I remember that.
You worked on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't that where like they had that vending machine outside of where they all meet up or whatever?
Yeah, it was like that's where they I think they were in detention or something. I don't know. I actually don't remember watching it. I think I watched it like twice, and that was such a long time ago.
It was, yeah.
I recorded all the vocals for it. Everybody in it was super nice.
You know, I was also thinking about this while Rod was talking about Meghan Trainor. It has nothing to do with Meghan Trainor, but just the concept of loving an AI or loving a computer or loving something that's not human. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really interesting concept seen in was it him or her?
I was gonna say it was her, like right there where he fell in love
Phoenix,
with his Siri.
Yeah, with Siri basically.
It was it's called something else, but
yeah,
it was basically like a heightened like Siri in like another 20 years.
It's like basically Spider-Man's falling in love with his suit.
Yeah.
Hey there, Carol. Or what was the suit's name?
Karen. No, just playing. But then again in Alita, I don't mean to keep bringing up Alita. I know most of this episode has been Alita, but it's another one of those things where like, can a human love an AI or a cyborg or whatever?
Well, the difference though, is the cyborg, because Alita, they make it very clear, has a human brain.
Yeah.
Now this isn't a spoiler because they say in the trailers and stuff that it's been 300 years since the fall. A question that I have that I don't think is a story, like a plot hole. I just think it needs further explanation that they're probably going to get to. But they make a point to say like Alita came from like the dumpster of the Sky City after the fall, so she's 300 years old. And when Christoph Waltz finds her, he's like, "Oh, her human brain's still alive." I'm still accepting all of that. It was like somehow in cyberpunk future, human brains don't decompose when they're in the cyborg body, dead cyborg body. But then later on, he's like, "You should eat. Your brain still needs nutrition." I'm like, "But how the fuck did it survive in the dumpster for?" Okay, sure, whatever. Let's work on this later.
Don't think too hard.
But it was just the fact of like, if he just never mentioned like that she needed to eat, I was already like,
Yeah,
sure.
It's like,
That's
how
what
are you alive?
That's what
How?
I was kind of like questioning in the
I can make an
Ant-Man.
excuse.
where the
Oh.
his wife with Janet. Is
Yeah.
stuck
How
in-
did she stay
How'd
alive?
you stay alive? Like you obviously aged,
And then time was different there.
so you don't need to eat there or drink there.
And now you have powers and shit.
Yeah.
There's something strange about that.
Nah,
Did you see Bumblebee?
I did not see.
Oh, wow.
Bumblebee.
So,
You know, like I got to that Bumblebee and it was hilarious. All the people coming in were like, "Oh, this is a good movie. It was a good movie," and it was totally. I just had that attitude, like syndrome meme or whatever. It was like, "You're late." It's like 15 years too late. Like we're like, we finally make after Michael Bay gets his crap, leaves or whatever, and
Yeah.
they finally make it what we should have had it.
so they confirmed, so I don't think it's a spoiler anymore because they've said now, because people who saw the movie suspected and didn't say anything for the most part that this is a reboot, right? Because the way it ended was like, this could loosely connect with the original Transformers movies, but it looks like they're starting all over. So they, like, I think last week or the last couple of weeks, they confirmed, like, nope, we're restarting everything. I think they didn't mention it because in case the movie didn't do well, they're like, no, this is part of a loose universe. But since it did so well, they're like, we're just restarting it all.
To take note of what Rod, I think you were saying about Alita's like the fluid motion of seeing. I know I keep bringing up the movie, but to play off of what you were saying there, like with Bumblebee, like the way that the Transformers transform, like the feel, the sound, the like everything about it is like way better than any of the Transformers movies I've seen in the past. Like this is the closest I feel that we're gonna get to like the real thing.
I won't lie though, I loved the first Transformers movie.
Yeah, no, I did too.
I had emotional feelings throughout. Like I felt very nostalgic. It felt like it kind of had like a Goonies type of vibe. Not Goonies in the ensemble way, but like the 80s, like
Yes.
the kid falls in love and he meets the girl, he gets the car, like he's on an adventure, like
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, it started tapering off real fast after that.
Yeah.
It definitely had like a flashy, fun aspect of it.
Yeah.
And like I remember being really excited seeing that movie, and it just went downhill. Like it just went so fast downhill. The story just left. From that point in time, it was like
It became
Michael Bay
different.
explosion.
It was It became something else, and I don't know.
I can't remember if it was the second or third movie, but there was a point where they went to like robot heaven. And in the theater, I unsubscribed. Like I was like, nope, I'm not here anymore. Like, it was the same way with Heroes when it was on.
Yeah.
I was there even when everybody's like, this got terrible. The writer's strike ruined it. They didn't end it the same way. I was like, okay, I don't love everything that happened. I hated the way the first season ended, even though a lot of people loved it. I felt like it was a letdown. But I was still like, I'm still here. It's like Josh will attest from like my college relationships and stuff. I'm always the one hanging on. They gotta let go, and so like I'm here. So you gotta do a lot. You gotta like kick my fingers and stuff. And I felt like that moment when Transformers went to heaven. I was like, you just sliced my hand off, and I was hanging on that ledge. I was still believing you guys when you got like the literal Victoria's Secret model. Instead of a girl that could be a Victoria's Secret model. Like, but yeah, that first Transformers movie, like. So let's hope that it's better because Bumblebee is the first of this new one and it had that nostalgic vibe to it, but so did the first Transformers movie. So
I didn't want it anymore. Like I just saw it and was like, I don't want it.
a lot
Plus,
of great music.
Haley
Steinfeld.
I cried twice in that movie because of her.
Yeah.
She was so freaking good, man.
Good actress.
I'll have to rent it.
I was
The music
disappointed in myself afterward. But
The music,
no,
the music is so good in it, though. Like
it is.
Like the Smiths are like a very big part of the soundtrack.
I don't even like the Smiths, but I liked them in this movie.
Now there was
I can't stand this.
there was one scene, and it doesn't spoil any plot points, but now you'll look for it, and it might break the movie for you because just like how Infinity War had that weird 3D thing that didn't work out. There's a scene, and I confirmed it because we saw it one time, and I was like, did I just see that? And then we saw it again, and I waited and watched. There's a scene where Bumblebee is trying to protect Haley Steinfeld's character. So before he goes into the battle, he picks her up and puts her into a dumpster and closes the lid and then goes to fight. And he puts her in the dumpster, and she's like, no, no, no. And before he picks her up, she's talking. You can see her mouth move, the speech happening. As soon as he picks her up and lifts her, it must have changed to a CG Haley Steinfeld or something. or they didn't give her dialogue because her mouth wasn't moving and
cut,
dialogue kept coming.
It cut to a wide. It became like a close up to her, a close up of him, medium, and then it cut to a wide.
Yeah.
And her mouth wasn't moving at all. The words were there, but it was just like.
It was so weird because I was like, once again, a movie of this scale. They must have been like, we're so far down this pipeline, we can't.
I know they run right up to the release dates, man. I know they do that, yeah.
Or they purposely let it in so that people like us are talking about it, and then more people go see Bumblebee. But I don't know.
And I'm sure, like, if you like magnify the thing, maybe her mouth is moving, but where you're at in the theater, or if you're watching it, it doesn't look like it.
It doesn't read, yeah.
It doesn't read at all. They missed it. But that's such a small detail.
Yeah. Besides that, it was a movie with a lot of heart, and it was interesting. It kind of, even though it takes place in like the 80s, it was interesting, the updated feel, because the first Transformers movie, they're like, well, it's a boy getting his car, right? Because that's how boys get cars. Girls don't get cars. And they kind of subverted it a little bit because Megan, what's her face's? Fox's character is good with cars. But actually, if you want some good viewing, there's a YouTuber named Lindsay Ellis who does several critiques about the Transformers series. And not unironically, she does them very well. Actually, do you remember Nostalgia Critic?
Mm-hmm.
She was the Nostalgia Chick, I think. Whatever. Anyway, she was part of that camp, and now she's on her solo channel, Lindsay Ellis. She does a kind of a breakdown of, and one of the videos is how on dialogue and story and paper, Megan Fox's character is portrayed as like kind of a feminist hero. But the way it's visually shot from Michael Bay's eyes completely like conflicts with that sentiment. It's like they're talking about how good she is with a car. Her dialogue she talks about how she grew up as a mechanic with her dad, and so her boyfriend, who just assumes that she doesn't know anything about cars, is kind of like a jerk for it. But then meanwhile, they're like doing a close up of her midriff.
Yeah.
You know, and then she's like bending over like a car, and like I think there's like an allusion to like Shia LaBeouf like getting a hard on or something. And it's like,
sure,
you kind of subvert. Well, anyway, so Bumblebee, Haley Steinfeld is like, there's no gimmick about it. It's about a girl getting her first car.
Mm-hmm.
And I buy it. Like it completely reads like that emotional sense. The feeling that I had when I first got my first hand-me-down car, like I could tell it was completely accurate to how I felt. And it was interesting to see a female lead for once, like be like, this is a story of a teenage girl getting her first car.
Yeah.
You know, working a day job, trying to like wheel and deal and all that stuff. So
she does that doe-eyed look really well.
See, like, I thought that it was a prequel because in the first movie, I thought that Bumblebee was already there, like on Earth, and everybody else came to join him. And not to mention, when Shia LaBeouf's character goes to get his first car, he runs across the bug.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought that the car switched from the bug to the Corvette because the guy was like, "Where'd this car come from?"
Oh,
yeah, I'll sell this car to you. Like he didn't know where it came from. Like it went from like one car to another car, and so like it would make sense to me that this was a prequel movie. What you're saying, it was just completely.
So the way it ended, they could have made that work if they wanted that to happen. But it left more evidence that this was a different timeline.
Okay.
I dig how they kind of make fun of themselves in the sense.
I don't want to give away the ending, but it's just like everything up until like maybe the last 10 minutes, it totally could have been a direct prequel to the original Transformers movie. And then like the events of the like last 10, 15 minutes are like, is this?
Is Peter Cullen in it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Optimus Prime's in it. I think it was him.
Yeah? Is the same guy's voice? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I wonder if he has a contract like, I'm always Optimus Prime.
Roll out.
And Winnie the Pooh. Or no, Eeyore.
And Eeyore, yeah.
Wasn't the story of the original Transformers movies it was going to be George Clooney?
Ooh.
And the internet just wasn't having it. And so they're like, well, here he is.
I don't know that.
I think somebody fact checked me on like if you're like in the comments or something, but I believe that they originally had like George Clooney or somebody else like that, and everybody's like, no, Optimus is Peter Cullen. Like that's the only voice we've ever known.
That was like the best decision that they made, to be honest. Even though it was like they went crazy with the crappy plots. I remember there was some weird thing going on at that time with phones, because it was before we had actual smartphones, and so. You could call people and like send them. I remember Snakes on a Plane. You could send them like a call with Samuel L. Jackson calling like, "Hey Steve, how's it going?" Like if your friend, his name was Steve, and so you could change stuff like that. And you could do the same thing with Transformers. And
wow.
you could vote. I remember you could also vote on what classic line you wanted Optimus to say in the movie. And so there was like 5 different classic lines that came from the original cartoon that he said in that movie. And one that came through that I voted for and that everybody else voted for as well, obviously, was "One shall stand and one shall fall," or something like that.
It's like what is it? The Autobots roll out. That's like another one. Really?
Well, he said that all the time, but
Yeah. Like, I guess he says that anyway. But
I hate to say this because not that I don't like John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that anytime a wrestler crosses over into the film world, I'm a little skeptical until they kind of like
yeah,
get their fitting.
yeah, like
prove their ground.
because I feel like there's these tiers, you know, like there like I think like the even though he wasn't a wrestler, like the holy grail of that crossover is like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Right. You go from somebody that people probably didn't take very seriously. And I saved this video on Facebook. You probably already seen it, Vince, because I know Vince is a huge Arnold fan. He talks about how like all the reasons that Hollywood casting agents said he would never work are all the reasons why he's hired.
Yeah.
Like they said he had a funny accent. They said like nobody would want like this over like chunky dude and
Bulked up.
everything. But when you think of the Terminator, that's literally why he's the only one that could play that role.
Or Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Because didn't that come before?
Conan?
Terminator?
I think so. It wasn't his,
Was before.
I think Conan wasn't Conan like his thing that kind of like submit like his big break.
Yeah. Oh, he also had that other Hercules movie, Hercules
Yeah.
in New York or something. What it was?
But I think Conan the Barbarian was like he's here, like
Yeah.
he can do this.
James Earl Jones was in the movie too.
But then I think it's that
Yeah.
the Holy Grail, and then I think like kind of in like the intermediate of that is like the Rock, you know, the Dwayne Johnson kind of things where he's just kind of like generic action star. Like it's so predictable now that I
Yeah.
feel like he has so many action movies that come out in a year or two that he must like. I'm almost convinced that he just green screens like a bunch of generic performances and they just put it into movies. You know, like I'm saying that because we know people at his production company. Like, but
No.
I remember.
He's huge. If you look at that the Barbarian movie, he is freaking gigantic.
That was the biggest he was ever.
It's
really.
scary.
I remember seeing
That may be a lie, actually.
I remember seeing Conan the Barbarian, but the one that stuck with me the most, and only because it played more when I was a kid, was Red Sonja.
Yeah, Red Sonja
And
was
I had the
awesome.
hugest crush on Brigitte Nielsen at the time.
Yeah.
And then then fast forward, I'm like a teenager, and then she's on like Flavor of Love or something. I'm like, well, that ruins that part of that childhood.
they were redoing Red Sonja. It's actually
Really?
in the notes here
Oh,
that we were going to talk about. I remember last time we talked about, Bryan Singer's problems.
Yes.
Of,
Allegedly, we don't.
alleged
Yeah.
problems with little boys or whatever. So anyway, that's been in the news. They fired him from Red Sonja
Oh,
No
because he
way.
was supposed to direct that.
Were they in production or was this
I
before?
don't think so. I think it was before.
Because didn't he got fired or left Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yep.
I think,
And
too,
then
right?
they was quietly hired back on
Yeah.
for the editing process. I'm pretty positive.
I did not like Bohemian Rhapsody, but it could have been better.
I have a lot of friends that were like, "It's so amazing," and I wanted to be like, "But it's not historically correct."
It wasn't the historically correct part that got me. Is that they presented it as historically correct, and it wasn't. Like, so have you seen the trailers for Rocket Man, the Elton John movie?
No.
They make it very clear that it's like
Embellished.
a nostalgic lens because they say the tagline of it is instead of based on a true story, based on a true fantasy.
Mm.
And there's a scene in the trailer where he plays Rocket Man. He hits that first, or Benny and the Jets or something. He hits the first chord, and then everyone in the audience like levitates, like their feet like levitate off the ground, and they just kind of float. And it's like, I'm in. Like I know, I feel like I know the vibe now, and it's not going to be like this is exactly what happened.
When you say Rocket Man, though, have you ever seen the Disney movie Rocket Man?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I would encourage everyone, if you like stupid slapstick humor, to go rent Rocket Man or
Man,
rent
huh.
it or buy Rocket Man.
My
It is a
favorite-
Disney movie that just like nobody got in the 90s. And it has Fred, as the guy in the movie's name's Fred Randall. Gosh, I can't remember the guy. He was
in Half Baked.
Yes, he was in Half Baked and a bunch of other like silly movies. He's a comedian, but he got into this funny Disney movie where like he's like a nerd and they need somebody to go to Mars.
Yeah.
And so they eventually like
Him and a team go.
they eventually choose him, but he's just a moron, and all these crazy things happen.
And a
if-
monkey goes.
Yeah, a monkey goes with him. I mean, it's just a crazy movie. If you've never seen that
don't think I've
movie and
seen
you
it.
like any kind of slapstick humor, I love that movie so
me too.
much. It bombed, so it just
I wonder,
never did anything.
I wonder if it's going to be one of those movies because Man, this is a weird thing to think about, like my niece and like Josh, your kids and stuff, and Vince's and your niece and nephews and things.
My future kids
that won't know is when we were kids, that like TV would just be on in the background. I guess maybe the equivalent is maybe YouTube or something for these kids nowadays, but TV used to be on and it would just roll whatever programming there was. So that might have been one of the movies that once I see it, I'm like, I do kind of vaguely remember this, not because I sat down and watched it, but because like I was playing with He-Man and the TV was on. That's how I pieced together Red Sonja like that, because it always played. And then at one point, I'm like, what is up with this? You know, like, and I finally sat down and watched it.
Yeah, I definitely had that with like, because like Channel 50 would always, in Chicago, would always play just classic movies or whatever. So like Revenge of the Nerds or whatever.
I had a.
There's a scene like where he's, you know, he has to share the air unit of the other guy, and he ends up like, you know, instead of eating the food from the tubes, he ate like diarrhea medicine or something. Like, he starts like farting, like, oh, I can smell it.
There's one point, yeah,
because I might have seen like a DVD cover of this or something.
Him and the monkey like they switch cryogenic frozen like pods or whatever.
Yeah,
and the monkey's ends up working, but his malfunctions.
Oh no, that's what. Okay, yeah. So this cover, Josh is holding up like where he's like bloated. It's like a painting.
Oh
he's
yeah,
bloated in space. I've seen that cover.
There's a point where, you know, because everyone else is in cryogenic sleep or whatever, and he has to be awake for the entire
3
trip to
months
Mars.
or something, yeah.
So he uses up all the food as art.
Yeah.
As like pastel paints. And there's a point where everybody wakes up and he's like shows them the painting. Yeah.
It's like, it must have been somebody else that did it.
Yeah.
He was the only one awake.
It's really dumb. It's like super dumb.
He's
funny.
Such a moron. And I know that's not, you know, that's way off topic too, but
You know, one of those speaking of like kind of weird like B-level retro films, remember Bubble Boy?
Yeah.
I never saw it.
I don't know if I can't tell, because once again, we all grew up in a time period where we don't know what other people experience. We only have our own experiences. So now I feel like all of our kids and nieces and nephews and stuff know about everyone else's experience in the entire world.
Internet, man.
When Bubble Boy came out, I don't even know why we wanted to watch it. I think me and actually one of my friends' moms was like, that looks so stupid it's funny. So we went to the theater to see it. We laughed so hard. I think we watched it like 3 or 4 more times after that. It would not be made now, because there's a very racist scene where they go to Chinatown, but like it's so funny.
Is that Jake Gyllenhaal?
Jake Gyllenhaal, man.
Oh my gosh, I have to see it then.
And Swoozie Kurtz and Danny Trejo.
It's really freaking funny.
And it's kind of slapstick, but like really dumb. Like it felt like if
it's better than most of those types of movies.
But it's like if we all got drunk in college and wrote a screenplay and then someone professionally made it. Like, because there's a scene where like Danny Trejo's like he's Danny Trejo. Like, he's like a badass.
He only plays Danny Trejo.
Yeah, like he like fell out of Con Air into like Bubble Boy, and
pretty much.
You know how he's like covered in tats. So like I think Jake Gyllenhaal's is like Danny Trejo's like I'm out here fighting for my love, and Jake looks at his chest because there's these names, you know. So he looks at like, you know, his belly, and this is like, oh, Susan. Like, no, because it has like an X through it.
Yeah.
And then he like looks up his like left pec, and he's like, oh, Cindy. He's like, no. And then he like looks over his right pec, and there's another name like that. No. And then he like looks up at his neck. He's like, oh yeah, her Wildfire. You know. and then it turns out those are real tattoos on him, and it's like something like his mom, his daughters, and like his wife or something like that. But they decided to make a joke out of it, and they Sharpied X's through it like it was a tattoo, and made them care like his past like relationships.
That's
but then once again, you see, you know, we're talking about spoilers, like it's been like 15, 20 years now.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, so the reason Jake Gyllenhaal's in a bubble is because his mom's like super conservative, really like helicopter mom, you know, vaguely religious. They don't specifically point out she is, but you get a sense that she's like very rigid in that sense. And so that's why she's in a bubble. She's never allowed to touch germs and stuff. There's a scene where he gets his first boner and he doesn't know what it is. And she specifically says, like, just do what your father does and say the Pledge of Allegiance until it goes away. Like, it's so funny. Like, it's like innocently dirty, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when they get to Danny Trejo and you find out, like, he's looking for his true love, Wildfire, and then he talks about like all their exploits, like sexual exploits and stuff. And
It turns out it's his mom.
yeah,
Nah.
so like at the end of the movie, because you know how those movies at that time ended with like everyone in the movie somehow ending up in the same place.
Yeah.
It ends with like everybody in a car wreck or something together, and like Swoozie Kurtz like lifts her head up from the wreckage, and then Danny Trejo's like Wildfire. But the best part is like I don't know if I forget, I haven't seen it in a while. I don't know if they address it, but like she's married in the movie. Like they're not like her and Jake Gyllenhaal's father aren't divorced in the movie, but like they have a happy ending with like Danny Trejo. It was so funny, but I don't know if you haven't seen it. That's another like weird one. Like so Rocket Man and Bubble Boy.
They probably came out about the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like
I would say so.
I remember Bubble Boy came out like after the Seinfeld episode of like Bubble Boy, where like they meet the Bubble Boy and accidentally pop his bubble, or whatever. But where the kid was actually sick and he couldn't be outside.
You know, actually, it's funny. This is gonna be sad. Because I should have known about it before. But that's the movie I discovered Blink-182.
Yeah,
because
they were in so many movies, dude. They were in.
Well, they weren't in it. The song,
the music.
Damn It.
Damn It. Yeah, he was in a ton of movies.
So this is growing up. Yeah, that was a segue scene where he finally runs away from home, and I was like, "What is this song?" And then I just like, take off your pants and shirt. Like, there's so many like Enema of the State. Like, oh my god, this is the best band
I was on
ever.
Dude Ranch.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it just threw me into like I just started looking up everything about this band,
Okay.
and once again, before like the internet was like a huge like we could search easily about things.
Yeah.
It was like a week's worth of research because I was looking up. So this is growing up.
Which later they did change it to like, damn it, parentheses.
Yeah.
So this is growing up, like kind of like time of your life /
Oh
yeah. Good riddance. Good riddance is actually what it's called, and then time of your life afterwards.
Me and you can't forget that song because that was like every graduation for like a year straight. But speaking of graduation songs, this was funny 2 or 3 days ago, and I was like, whatever happened to Vitamin C?
Vitamin C.
And so that last couple days, I've been like, as we go on, we remember. And then I just watched a YouTube video from some of our friends, but they were announcing that the sketch group was breaking up, and their montage was that song. And I was like, what? Is this coming back? Is this going to be a thing? Are we going to like bring Vitamin C back? Like, we should start a hashtag like bring
It should
Vitamin C
morph
back.
into like Good Riddance, and then morph into after that, I will remember you.
Oh wow!
Because those songs, all 3 of those songs,
Yeah.
are still to this day. Especially Good Riddance is like a graduation. Like, oh, I'm gonna. They have some kid that learned the guitar like last year. I'm gonna play it. I'm the salutatorian.
You know what the internet has done to I Will Remember You, though? Has do you know who the Ebby family is? They're really funny. You probably remember there's a meme where it's like Happy New Year, and it's like a daughter, son, mom, and dad, and they're like Happy New Year, and then the daughter gets like extra, and she's like and then she smashes dishes and stuff. You've probably seen it at some point. That's them. But they do these sketches where anytime the dad disagrees with the mom, she gives him the look, and you just see him in a coffin, and it plays like a second, like I will remember. And the Ebby family, I feel like, has single-handedly turned that song into like dad getting murdered by mom theme.
Oh man.
Well, I'm glad it's that and not the dog heaven or dog.
That's Arms of an Angel.
Oh god.
An angel. Yeah.
What was the Meg Ryan movie with? It was like
Please say Tom Hanks, because that's literally 20 movies.
Joe versus the Volcano.
And Nicolas Cage.
Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Angels
City of Angels.
City of Angels.
That's had that song from Goo Goo Dolls in it.
That's
that
right.
changed,
Iris.
that changed
Iris.
their careers.
Yeah.
Like I think
I don't know why I thought about.
I think
that
they're
movie.
starting to go under, and then they wrote that song,
was
and
huge.
it just changed.
Baby Black Balloon.
Because they also didn't ever sound the same after that. Like the Google Dolls we know
That's
now
true.
was because of Iris.
Yeah.
Definitely a different change in that band. Jeez. I really wanted to talk about Shazam. For me, I don't know if you guys are excited for that at all. I am
Definitely.
so excited for that movie.
It's everything I wanted it to be.
I'm
so far.
cautiously optimistic.
We were talking a little bit earlier about the death of the DCEU.
Yeah.
To where it's like it's gonna die. But I don't know if you saw, but like there is a rumor that Armie Hammer is gonna be Batman. In the Batman. And so
I could dig that.
yeah, I mean, like especially like somebody like put his face in like the mask, and it's like that looks actually really close to Affleck's like face.
Yeah.
And even though he's way younger, he's way younger than Affleck.
Someone should have done like Armie Hammer as Batman and then Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne or something. Because I still think Ben Affleck made a good Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, well, it's the same way I think Tobey Maguire did a good Peter Parker, but not necessarily a good Spider-Man. If they did that, and they're still continuing with Wonder Woman 2 and Aquaman 2 now, and Henry Cavill is actually supposed to be doing a cameo in the Shazam movie. So it's like if they just replace Batman.
Batman.
Batman. Sorry, I'm
Matt Damon.
I'm humble. If they just replaced Batman and just went on like it never happened, I think it'd be okay. I think we could continue at least, and then finally after, because they're obviously going to push this Aquaman to make some more money, to make money out of it, and Wonder Woman obviously at least the 2 movies. If Wonder Woman 2 is great, they could do 3.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense based on Aquaman that they're rebooting again, because it's kind of like Bumblebee, where it's like if they wanted to, they could say this connected to Justice League and Wonder Woman and stuff. But there's a lot more evidence that Aquaman is a completely separate thing from the Justice League.
You can't have the same actor, though, and not have it connected.
I used to believe that until the DC just fucked everything up. So,
I mean, they make... what is her face? The princess chick, Dolph Lundgren's daughter in the Aquaman.
It's Mira.
Oh. No.
Mirror...
It's not Mira?
It's Mira, but what's her real name? Amber Heard. Yeah.
She's great. She says like, you defeated what's the face from Justice League,
Steppenwolf,
in
Aquaman. She said you've already defeated. But they in the same, like a couple scenes later, they talk about how he's never been to Atlantis before.
Oh yeah,
that
seems like
trippy.
It's just a funky.
Because he was there.
But how do you know that? Like that little area, like because in the what you're talking about is in Justice League where they were guarding the mother box, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Like that could have not necessarily been in Atlantis then. That could have been outside the city somewhere.
Because I'll have to rewatch to see if what they say.
You don't have to rewatch. I'm not telling you to do that.
No, yeah. But I am interested though.
But in the same, but again, once again, later in another point in the movie, he references being in Atlantis before.
Oh, okay.
So it was like
that sounds like something within the movie itself that had problems.
I think it was James Wan, I think, that directed it. I think
you could tell where it like switched hands.
Yeah.
I think he took the same approach as Patty Jenkins. Patty did it better. Patty with Wonder Woman, and she was like, "I'm just not going to be really concerned about the Justice League thing. I'm just going to make my movie, and then if these guys want to try to connect it, they can do it." Patty had a little bit easier because it happened like literally hundreds of years before.
Exactly.
Justice League. So Aquaman, I guess he did that, and so now like if you're trying to connect it, it has problems. But it sounds like they're just because he also, if this is part of the Justice League like universe, there's several times he should have called them.
Yeah.
And they've already established that they're calling each other all the time.
Yeah, but you know, in the Marvel universe is the same way. Where like they may even make fun of it in all those other like honest trailers. Who are like, oh, if we just called Hulk here, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
Hulk the kill smash.
It's a weird distinction. But once you see Aquaman, I think you'll see what I'm saying. Like, it's not that they could have called him to solve like certain problems. Like the gravity of this event was equal to or greater than any of the Avengers or Justice League movie events and stuff. And there wasn't even like anybody free, or like it just didn't like there wasn't a fight once again, like supervising to see like where the events like lied. Even with the Ant-Man and like Hawkeye not being in Infinity War, there were semi-plausible things happening there. But with Aquaman, it was like it wasn't even that he didn't call them for help. It's like he doesn't even know them. He never once talks about like ever having an adventure with Wonder Woman, even knowing he doesn't seem to even fathom the existence of Superman. Like it's a really weird world where like nobody else is involved for some reason, and like the world treats it like he's the only. Actually, that's another good point in the movie. Something that I thought was a strong point is they don't call him Aquaman. Social media does, which is I think a really brilliant thing. Like, how do you give a guy a corny name? Let the internet do it. But in this movie, the mainstream like people, like society and stuff, don't seem to be aware of anybody else like him, which is really bizarre. They're like, Aquaman, like there's only one Aquaman. It's like and he's the only one that can save us. It's like, but what about like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, like like any of these people that just saved the world that was very visible before. Once again, that's nitpicking, but I think it's not as a criticism as like they should have done that. It's just, to me, it's evidence that I think Aquaman and Wonder Woman are going their own ways and not necessarily worrying about sticking together.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad are splitting up.
Yeah. I mean, I just wish, like everyone wishes, that DC would actually kind of talk to each other.
Yeah,
and like sit down and actually plan something.
They need a Kevin Feige kind of character in it.
Yeah, that small thread that runs through everything.
That makes sure Halle Berry isn't cast as Storm. Was it Pico Wolf? Okay. I have to mention this because in our live streams, someone had mentioned on RKVC's YouTube channel, someone had mentioned, like, I listen to your podcast. My takeaway is Rod doesn't like Halle Berry as Storm. So I feel like now
Where'd you get that from?
I have to make like one reference to it every episode now or something.
Yeah. We're happy.
That's for you.
Yeah, stuck with us this far.
Well, let us know if you like. This is our second episode now in like this new format that hopefully is cleaner sounding.
Mm-hmm.
And if the technology works, you're seeing a weird animation with this.
Yeah, I should be talking when I'm talking.
Yeah. Or maybe if I chew, the mouth still opens. So that might not be right. But
yeah. Cookies.
I had to like think about that in my head for a sec.
But been a lot of fun. We once again we had a loose structure.
I'll edit it. Because we went it probably went way over.
This one went
it didn't time out the same time as last.
No, it didn't. But we're definitely over an hour.
Yeah. And I try to keep these under an hour. I don't want people to be like,
we started at 140 something.
Okay. Oh, damn.
Or
I need to get
150.
home then.
So once again, all our socials are in the descriptions and the notes and stuff.
Or no, we started like a 1.
Vince and I are in a band called RKVC. Josh has a podcast and YouTube channel called A Van's Life, and his kids have Nerd Schmerd. Check all that stuff out.
We love all the social media for this guy too.
Yeah, for Yellow Spandex.
Please go and like Yellow Spandex on Instagram as well.
Yeah, and
Instagram heart.
And leave reviews of the podcast wherever they're available.
Mm-hmm. Stitcher and Apple Podcasts are the big ones.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We love having you.
And we'll next time.
That's right. Peace.
Whoa, my butt.